Welcome everybody to the after show. Yeah. So I do have something that I want to show to our audience really quickly. Hang on just a second. Man with the machine gun.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously I have the trade that we read today.
Sure.
The second trade from New 52.
Yikes.
Which is huge because it is it's issues 7 through 16 and number 0. So it's a very large trade. But the coolest thing that I have, and I don't know if you can see that this is signed or not, is last year I met Keith Giffen at a convention. And you can see there in the corner, it's written by, well, you can kind of see it's written by Keith Giffen. This is the first issue of Blue Beetle Rebirth. And so I brought that, I had him sign it, and I talked to him a little bit about the character. And had I not done that last year, I would never have done it because he has actually passed away now. So, yeah, so it's actually kind of a big deal and like a cool, I don't know if it's a canon event, but like a core memory that like, wow, I got to meet the creator of this character like before he passed on and like get his signature. And like he told me about creating him and all this stuff. And I guess, you know, it was another one of those periods at DC where it was like, we've just had this big event and we want to launch some new characters out of it. And so Blue Beetle was a name that they owned, but I don't know that the Ted Kord stuff was like super selling. But Giffen had written Ted Kord stories in Justice League International, I believe, already. And so then he was the one that they went to like create the new one. So he just came up with this kid from El Paso. And interestingly, one of the reasons I didn't want to do Nova next time is because Nova, at least the second Nova, is Sam Alexander, who is a kid from El Paso, Texas, that gets the Nova helmet and, you know, then goes on intergalactic space adventures. So it's kind of like, I didn't want to go straight from Blue Beetle to that because on the surface level, their backstories seem really similar. Although people from my generation mostly remember Richard Rider, who's the original Nova. And he was a member of, it's the Teen Titans equivalent that they have at Marvel. I'm trying to think of the name. Oh, the New Warriors. That's what they are. Okay. Yeah, that team. He's like a founding member of them. But I like him because I like obscure Marvel, and I do like the newer version of the character. Unfortunately, I had the experience with Sam Alexander Nova that you had with Jaime Reyes, where I was like, I've kind of read this already. Like, this is Jaime Reyes, the character, and I kind of already read this in this DC title, and now I'm reading it at Marvel, you know, so it's funny because the way you reacted to that is the way I reacted to Nova number 2. So I don't know.
That's funny. Yeah, and I would have reacted the same way if we had reviewed Nova next time.
Oh yeah,
going,
of course.
Well, all my complaints, what I said last episode, yeah, we're still there.
Same complaints, different universe, same complaints. Yeah, but I do think that the movie did a really good job of tying together the legacy stuff, and that was a really satisfying part of the Flash story that we read. So it makes sense that you're like, I want to see more of this because that's very much DC's thing, right? So I do think that overall I was pretty happy with the movie, even though I complained about them killing his father and, you know, not having Paco and Brenda. I think they did a good enough job of like communicating like this is who the character is and this is kind of the universe that he exists in. They did set him in a fictional city in the movie, which I thought was interesting because, again, one of the things that makes him unique in DC is that he's not in a fictional city. Most of their characters are. Right. But then in the movie, they were like, well, yeah, he's in like Blue Valley or something that they just like made up. So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think of the movie overall?
I like how the uncle gets a new truck and it's blue and he's like, it's a little on the nose, don't you think? Because that's usually like when you have a superhero that has a color as their theme, it's like everything when they're not in a superhero suit, they're wearing blue. And it's like, if you're trying to hide your identity, maybe don't wear that color.
It's like
Or
Power Rangers when everybody
yeah,
just wears their color. And it's like, okay, like this is a little weird.
wait a
This
minute. So when we see these superheroes, we always see, like red and green and blue and black and pink all together. And then when we see you guys in, like with Bulk and Skull and all those crazy guys,
oh my
we
gosh.
we see the same colors, and it's the same group of
Yeah.
people, same color. Maybe there's, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's so funny because, like, just bringing up Power Rangers, I have to go on this rant, but like Angel Grove, so like so many bad things happen there. And so, when I
Yes.
was watching this, my mom was like sort of watching in the background, and she's like,
Yeah.
if I lived in Angel Grove, I would move.
It's true.
And that happens in so many superhero things where it's like, they just wreck the town, and it's like, why would anyone want to live there? But like, yeah, having him, oh, I live in Blue City and I drive a Volkswagen Beetle that's blue, and like that would be just too
Yeah.
much.
It's like, all right, come on. Yeah, it the thing about Angel Grove applies to really most of the major cities. You could live in Metropolis, but occasionally you will have gigantic large-scale destruction because Superman has been fighting somebody that's threatening the whole planet, and unfortunately it just leveled the block that you live on.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have as much property damage in Gotham, but there's way more serial killers per capita than like anywhere else on the whole planet. So I don't know. I don't know which one you want to do. It seems like Gotham would be scarier to live in than Metropolis. Like if I lived there, like I would never go outdoors at night. Like I would be like the dogs can only go to the bathroom during the day, and I'm because hopefully Batman comes and saves you, but usually a couple people have to die before he gets on the case of whoever it is. So in
that would be
might as well be you.
Yeah, that's not good in that case. That
No.
would be a fun idea for a travel show where it's like each episode you talk about traveling and vacationing in, fictional cities. And like,
Yeah.
so you cover like Angel Grove and Metropolis
Oh
and
my
Gotham and
gosh.
all of those places, and be like, well, there's a lot of crime. So you need to bring mace, and you need to bring a bat signal, and,
Yeah.
stop by this shop, and they'll have all of that stuff that you can buy at a overpriced,
Mhm.
because, whatever. And that'd be kind of funny.
I mean, Angel Grove almost seems worse than any of the comic book ones because it's not just that they have superhuman battles regularly. They're like kaiju monsters attacking the buildings like regularly. And it looks like in every episode, it's the same section of town that keeps getting destroyed and rebuilt. So like if you live or work there, like I would go somewhere else. I would just be like, you know what? This is the 50th time they've replaced the office building this year. Like, I don't think I can handle it.
But at the same time, they have all of those mountains and hills and like wilderness where no one lives. And that's where
Right.
most of the like really big fights take place.
It's true.
Like in Dragon
It's
Ball
true.
Z, when it's like, hey, we're in town, maybe let's move this out to the country where there's nobody and there's just a bunch of hills and valleys and stuff. And we can fight out there and not, destroy anything or kill anybody accidentally. But if we do, we'll see their parachutes and it'll be okay.
The wilderness on Dragon Ball Z is so bizarre because it does not resemble anywhere on actual Earth.
No.
It's like these giant pillars of rock with like a little bit of grass at the top. And there's just like a whole bunch of them near each other just so Goku can like jump from one to the other, I guess. And it looks cool, but I'm like, where are they right now? Like,
well, they also have dinosaurs.
It's true. They do have
and
dinosaurs.
Giant pterodactyls and
It's
all
true.
kinds of crazy things.
Oh yeah, didn't Gohan have that like pet dragon for a while too, or something?
Yeah.
That little purple dragon thing. That was in one of the movies, or maybe a couple of them. Icarus, that's his name.
Oh yeah, Icarus.
Icarus. No. Good times.
Yes.
Yeah, but the movie I thought did a good job mostly of representing the character. I mean, my gripes with it that I had were mainly them killing the father. I would have preferred to have the friend group instead of like the crazy uncle, just because that's what I know from the comic books. So I'm more like familiar with that. And I'm like, when are they going to bring in Brenda? When will we learn about her aunt and like the black magic that she's dealing and all the stuff like that?
Yeah.
And they didn't do any of that. but it seemed like they were really trying to link it to Ted Kord and Jaime Reyes as much as possible. So they had like, I forget what her name was, Susan Sarandon's character, but something like Virginia Kord or something. I don't know, like
Jenny.
Jennifer, yeah, like his. Well, was Jenny the younger one, or was that the older?
She was the love interest. The older one, yeah, I don't remember what her name was.
That's the name I was trying to remember. But anyway, she was like super evil, and she basically could have played the La Dama role really well, I think, but they changed her to kind of link her to Ted instead of Jaime. So I don't know. Some of the changes they made were just like strange, but they weren't necessarily like that bad. And I definitely thought the OMAC thing, I wasn't really on board with it until we got to the resolution at the end, where he like turned him to his side and he was like, oh, I've seen like what you experience now, and like you didn't have a choice and all this stuff. And then that guy actually ends up killing the evil Kord at the end by blowing himself up. I was like, oh wow, like I didn't expect that, actually. So that was kind of neat.
That was the thing with me with the movie, is like I got more uniqueness out of the movie than I did the comic. And I'm always afraid when I see a superhero movie that I don't know anything about in the comics, because I know from experiences like X-Men Origins Wolverine that, you know, sometimes they take certain liberties with superhero characters and they're so different than what they are in the comics that it's like it's not even the same character at that point. And so I don't want to get too attached in a movie and then find out that the comic version is actually better than that and is completely different, and then be like, well, great, I like this movie, but you know, it only exists here in this movie, and if I go read the comics, I'm going to be completely lost. Not that they need to change the comics, but you know, that kind of thing. But
yeah, this is more the inverse, where they just made like a couple like surface level changes, but it wasn't anything really too major. And I think that they stayed true to the spirit of the character, even if they moved some of the like characters around a little bit. You know?
And that's always good. Some of the Kord Industries and the Crazy Uncle stuff kind of made me think of like Stark Industries and some of the fallout of like we had with Mysterio in Spider-Man, where it's like, oh, he's, you know, angry because he worked for the corporation and they didn't want him, and so now he's just like, oh, they're listening and watching and I hate them and I want to get back at them, you know, that kind of thing. So it was a little like similarities there, but but at this point, again, it's like we've seen so much that it's you know, as time goes on, it's going to be harder and harder to do something new and unique. And also, while not being like, hey, let's bring back Chris Evans as Captain America because we can't figure out where to go. So let's just have him back because the fans like him. It's like, no, we still need to go in a new direction and do new things with different characters, and not just throw some random person into some role and say, hey, you're Captain America now. But like with Falcon, where it's like we have a character that their natural story arc is, hey, he was this character, he was this superhero, he's really matured and he's taken on the superhero thing, and he's got to that level where it's like he is a good choice for the next Captain America. And now we have a legacy character. Like that was so cool at Marvel to do something like that. That, you know, that's I think the direction that we need to go, instead of, you know, hey, Robert Downey Jr., let's see how much we can pay him to get him to make a cameo so the fans will get excited. Like, he was a really great Iron Man, and I'm so glad that we had everything that we had with him. Let's see some other characters now. Like,
let's tell some new stories.
Exactly. Like, we got Blue Beetle, who I had never heard of before. And after watching the movie, I was like, this is a cool character. I want to see where he goes from here, because they gave you a little cliffhanger ending. What's his sequel going to be like? You know, what new challenges await him? I'm ready for it. Like, yeah, I want to see it.
So the good news is that the word on the street about the Gunverse is that this Blue Beetle movie is canon to the continuity moving forward. It was disconnected enough from the other DC stuff, and it wasn't really connected to anything except its own history. So James Gunn was just like, yeah, he's going to keep playing the character. Like, why wouldn't he? So this is not really the start of that new universe, but he's going to be asked to come back to play the character again. So good. I don't know what's going to happen management-wise at Warner Brothers in that time, because it seems like they can't get their stuff together. But at least for now, they're saying like Blue Beetle is going to continue on. I would
Yeah.
really love Black Adam to continue on, and see more Justice
Yeah.
Society stuff, but it seems like that bridge has been burned, unfortunately. So,
That sucks. Like these two movies have really been my favorites among the
mm-hmm,
DC movies. Like I felt
mm-hmm,
like we're finally getting to a place where it's like, let's just crank out some good movies.
yeah,
They don't have to be this big long saga and all this other
mm-hmm.
stuff, because what Marvel's trying to do right now with their saga really is not that interesting to me,
It's
unfortunately.
disjointed, and it doesn't feel like they're being intentional about their world building anymore. It feels like they're just kind of throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks. And I have not watched Secret Invasion, mainly because so many people were like, it's not that great. But I wasn't even a fan necessarily of the comic that was based on, so I kind of already was just like, I don't know
Yeah.
about this. But the multiverse saga has not really lived up to its potential. And honestly, I have multiverse fatigue. Like, I don't want to see, like, more than I have superhero fatigue. I don't need to see another movie that has like multiple versions of the same character, like all of that stuff. It's cool. We've done it. Let's move on. Like, I
Yeah.
don't need more of that. It's gotten to be so much that it's just like, throw whatever actor at the screen that we can get. We can get Michael Keaton, like he'll sell tickets. We can get this person, put Supergirl in there, like all of that. And it's like, that's cool, but tell a story about a character that I care about and I'll come back. It doesn't have to have like all this extra like multiple versions of everybody to like hold my attention. In fact, I'm kind of getting bored with that, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
so
don't know.
funny because the most recent episode of South Park that aired was
Mm-hmm.
about that, where there's
Oh,
this
really?
multiverse thing going on, and they're also talking about Disney and a lot of things that people would
Mm-hmm.
consider offensive, as South Park does. But the idea here is that there's a multiverse kind of theme that's happening in the background that's sort of progressing the story forward, and the characters even comment. They're like, "Dude, this multiverse thing is so lame. Like, I'm so tired of it. Can we just do something else, please?" Like the characters in the story are like,
Yeah.
"No, this is another multiverse thing." Like, yeah, we're all feeling it. Like, the multiverse thing was cool, but it came, and now it's time for it to go bye-bye, because we're
Yeah.
just, I don't know, just tired of it. I don't know why. Like, it
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's been around for that long, but it's just seemed like an idea that just burned out really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's really cool to see all the actors that played Spider-Man together on the big
Yeah.
screen. Like, what a great moment in movie history. But it feels like now every movie feels like it has to do something like that. And, with Doctor Strange, where they're like, well, let's throw in Mr. Fantastic, let's throw in Professor X, and then kill them all 5 minutes later. But
Brutally.
it feels like they're just doing too much of it, and it's kind of lost any meaning now. Like, it's not special anymore. When
Yeah.
Spider-Man No Way Home did it, it was an event because we'd never seen anything like that before. But when you also add Multiverse of Madness and then the Flash movie and then Everything Everywhere All at Once, which apparently is great, but I'm probably not going to see just because it's a multiverse movie. And we're doing all of these things, and they had the Marvel What If show, which is like, here's a bunch of multiverse possibilities, and
An Infinite
after a
Crisis,
while
where
it's
they
just like,
went nuts on DC
oh
properties of
yeah.
having everybody that they could
Mm-hmm.
possibly drag in who's ever played somebody in a DC film
Yeah.
before. Like, that was so cool, but it's like, that's it. I don't need to see that again,
Yeah, don't
because
do it
you did
again.
it. You
Yeah.
did it. Great,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's done.
Yeah, exactly. So I do, for our listeners, want to make a tiny correction that Infinite Crisis is different than Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh,
They're
sorry.
two
Yep.
different events. But I have not read Infinite Crisis. I have read Crisis on
Crisis
Infinite
on
Earths,
Infinite Earths.
but Infinite Crisis was a really successful event, I think around 2005, 2006, somewhere in there, which is the reason why Dan DiDio, who was the editor at the time, was allowed to keep being like publisher and co-editor for a long time, even though apparently he was a really abusive manager and created a very toxic workplace
Yikes.
environment. So yeah, but that event that like he was in charge of like sold really super well. So
Hmm.
he like kind of like carried that success throughout, well past the New 52 era, until finally I think they let him go in like 2018, 2019 or something. And now Jim Lee, who is penciler, he designed, basically, you've seen 90s X-Men, right? Like
Yeah.
all of those outfits, every single one of them is designed by Jim Lee. He got big being the X-Men artist in the 90s, basically.
Mhm.
But now he's the like lead publisher of DC, or like he's the head of that company. So but yeah, now he's the guy in charge. So at least it's a creative person and not, which I think we need. This is me getting on my soapbox, but I think we need more of that, like creative people in these roles, instead of like somebody that's just like a business person that's like, well, what's going to sell books? We need to make a lot of money. Like, you do need to make money, but you also need to tell stories that people care about, and then you'll make the money by doing that.
Yeah.
Like, it's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a whole big thing. Like that
Yeah.
George Lucas video I sent you that's like,
Oh my
what,
gosh.
20 years old at this point, but he basically
Yeah.
says it as it is. Like, if these studios think that the audiences aren't going to get this, or they're not going to, and so they make these decisions that it's like, the reason that people enjoy this stuff is because it's art. And when you take the art away from it and you try to make it into a formula, it's no longer art. Back to formula. It's basically a science experiment, and a really bad one. And that's where we had that whole, there was a time period where it was like fan backlash on things, where studios tried to, here, look, we're making your favorite thing, and the fans are like, no, that is not our favorite thing. Sonic looks hideous. Like, he looks scary. That's really Sonic the Hedgehog? You've got to be kidding me. And so fans in their own computers are like, look, here's 100 times better version that I made on my computer at home in my spare time than all your professionals did. This is what we want. And so then it's like, then we start getting those things. Like, that was a cool little era. Now I think it's gone too far to where the fans are just like, disagree on everything, and everybody wants their own thing, and they want it like crazy. Like, we need to backpedal a little bit, but it's like that balance between the studio interference, the artists who are doing the creating, and then the fans who are doing and enjoying. It's like, can't we all just get along and make some really cool stuff for everybody to watch?
And I mean, honestly, I think and maybe this is going to make me look uneducated or something, but I think superhero movies can be artistic and tell good, meaningful stories, even though they are kind of basic good and evil stories at their core. Like, I think that you can tackle issues through, science fiction and fantasy and stuff that, in a different way that maybe is a little bit easier for an audience, or, just tell a good story that has these fantastic elements in it. I think all of that is possible within the superhero genre. I just think that somewhere along the line, especially with the movies, they've kind of lost like the heart of it. And Black Adam and Blue Beetle felt like they were kind of trending in the right direction, where it's like, okay, we're getting back to like, why do we care about them as people? And then you see all the superhero stuff, and just it's such a shame to have that stuff coming out like at the tail end of DC, and going like, will we see more stories like this? I don't know. It's oh man, it's rough. So.
Well, and you have all the imitations and the copies where it's like they steal the stuff that everybody likes, or like the Iron Mans or the Captain Americas or the Flash or whatever, and they steal it and they make a version that's like, all pomp and no circumstance. Like, it's basically, it looks on the outside like it's cool, but it's just a big spectacle of nothing. It's like 90% of the movie is CGI, but nothing actually substantial happens. And who are the characters again? We don't care. Like, there's so many movies out there like that nowadays that are just cheap copies. And it's like, to me, the best superhero stories are, it's a group of characters, it's people, it's everyday situations, but there's superpowers involved. Like, that's why I like Jessica Jones so much, is I'm really not a huge fan of the like whole private eye, kind of miserable story or whatever, but she literally has this one power that she's just like ridiculously strong, and can take a person and throw them like 50 feet like it's nothing, and she's just this kind of like skinny, normal looking girl. So it's like, you wouldn't assume that she would be able to do something like that. And it's cool because it's like, her superpower is not what defines her as a character. That's just something that she does as an extension of herself. And because she is moody and temperamental, she has these tantrums, but when she has a tantrum, there's a lot of destruction involved. So it's like that
Yes.
cool, you know, that extreme thing. And
Mhm.
even shows that don't have a superhero element, just something
Mhm.
that's like a little bit, you know, out of the ordinary. Like there's a show called White Collar, and it's basically this
Oh,
FBI
yeah.
agent and then a criminal informant. But the criminal informant is like amazing. Like he's a professional criminal. Like he is so good that it's like impossible for anybody to be that good. But because he is that good and he's working on the side of the FBI because he's a criminal informant now, it's a really cool show and a really cool dynamic where you get to see all these like impossible situations that no one would ever figure this out. But because he's
Right.
such a brilliant criminal, it all works out in the end. And there's that like pull and tug of like, you know, good versus evil, but it's like the FBI versus the criminal. And it's like, maybe the
Sure.
laws are too strict. Maybe the criminals are a little too loosey-goosey, and it's fun, but there's no
Mhm.
superhero elements, but it's got like something that's, you know, kind of extreme beyond just the normal day-to-day stuff.
Sure.
'Cause if you
Sure.
watch a show about nothing, well, I mean, Seinfeld's an exception because it's
That's the only
funny.
show that can succeed at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other shows, it's like, this is kind of boring. Like, what's the
Yeah.
cool, you know,
Mhm.
thing that we do as part of this show? So
Right. Yeah.
that's my rant.
Yeah. No, I largely agree with that. I mean, I feel superhero fatigue when it comes to non-comics media. But usually when I go back to comics, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I like this. You know, and
Yeah.
that usually is what kind of pulls me back in, where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is something that I care about. It is something that's cool. And I think that we're just getting a lot of, you know, I don't know if it's directors or producers or what it is, but a lot of people that don't really care, that are just
Yeah.
shooting stuff up to the screen as quick as they can to make, you know, however much money they can make. And I think that it shows in the final product, unfortunately. It's a shame that Blue Beetle flew under the radar the way it did.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with them not being able to legally promote it at all. So, you know, that's unfortunately
Yeah.
probably hurt it, because none of the actors, none of the, you know, creative people are allowed to like make public appearances and be like, hey, go see this movie, or do promos or anything. So that's the times we live in right now.
Yeah.
But
Well, and like I honestly, I was not planning on seeing that movie, but I
yeah,
only watched it because of this podcast, because I
sure.
wanted to be able to talk about it and compare it to the comic.
Mhm.
And after I read the comic, I was like, I really don't want to watch this movie. You know, like the main actor,
That's
he was
funny.
on the Netflix show about the Karate Kid, and so like
Oh, he was on Cobra Kai? Okay.
yeah, so he like that's where I saw him from. So I'm like, so basically this
Okay.
guy, you know, is now I'm supposed to accept him as a superhero? Like, no, he's just a dorky kid who does karate, you know. So
Oh,
that was one thing against it, because I was like, I don't know if I see this actor doing something else and how he's going to fit in. And I just,
sure.
there were so many things going into the movie that I was like, I don't expect to like this. I'm just going to do
Yeah.
it because of a research project. And even my wife was like, I don't want to really want to watch that. You can watch it by yourself. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll watch
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So, and then, you know, coming out of it, watching it, like, this is actually an enjoyable movie. Like, I have some criticisms and some
Yeah.
complaints here and there, you
Yeah.
know, whatever, but they're relatively minor. Like overall, I
Mhm.
enjoyed it and I'm want to see more. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I watched it, but that, you know, that just kind of like drives it home that like this movie, you know, is kind of flying around undetected and people are missing out if you're
Yeah.
not
I
watching it.
know.
Like
I
it
know.
has a lot of enjoyment in it. So
It does. Yeah.
you
It's
should
it was
watch it.
definitely a fun one. I don't think I have anything else. We've kind of just been ranting for
I
I
mean,
don't know how
that's
long now,
what
but
the after show is
that's what
for.
the after show is for. So yeah. All
But
right.
this has been another after show,
Yes, it has.
So thank yo for tuning in to our after show.
Yes, yes, yes.
See,
We'll see you later, later.
hasta la vista. Get you later.
Hasta
Peace
mañana.
out.
Comic.
Because they have no soul.